All right, here we go, everyone. Another awesome episode of the All Around Adventure podcast. And I'm excited to welcome Pelumi Nubi to the show today, who is the founder of Oremi Travels. So, Pelumi, thank you very much for taking time for joining me today and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually so excited for this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was looking forward to getting on the call with you. One thing that really kind of stood out to me is that you told me you are currently based in Dubai, which is a city that I absolutely loved visiting. And it's been a while since I've been to that part of the world. So I'm kind of thinking after this conversation, I may have to start looking at like possibilities to make it out there again.
Visiting is essential, definitely. Habibi, come to Dubai, as they say.
Yes, absolutely. But of course, I know you've covered a lot more ground than just Dubai. You've gotten a chance to travel to some amazing places around the world. And of course, we're going to be talking about that today in your episode and get some stories from you. But I usually like to start all of my guest conversations just kind of going back to the beginning a little bit, because as we know, every great story has a beginning. So we'll start there with you as well. So just take us back here a little bit and just kind of tell us what sort of inspired you initially to become a world traveler.
Ooh, okay. So going all the way back, but the story even starts a lot earlier. I migrated to the UK at the age of 10, and migration can be tough, especially when you have like a different cultural upbringing. I was born in Nigeria, moved to the UK, and then I went into like year six or, different, like the primary school, basically. And kids can be mean sometimes. We gotta admit it. They can be mean.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I got bullied. I did get in my fair share of bullying, and that made me quite become quite introverted. And I found my solace in the library. And what are in libraries? Books, lots of them, in fact. And I started, just reading and digesting, and more importantly, travel books, subconsciously, just mostly because I just like how pretty they look. I'm just like, wow, this place exists. Like, wow, that place exists. And that just, I think, planted a seed that I didn't even know was there till many years after, when it became, I could afford it and go to that places. But that was my earliest exposure to traveling through books. And then when I got to uni and got the opportunities to travel through, like, more affordably in terms of like uni funding and everything, I just kicked off. It was like a snowball effect. It went from 1 to 10 to 20 to 30 to 50 to 7, and now I'm 70 plus. And it's just like, why not? If the word is out there, I want to see it. And yeah, that's how it began.
All right, outstanding. Now, when you went to the UK, where were you based out of? Because you just kind of piqued my interest, because I actually lived in the UK for a year when I went to postgraduate school, and
Oh, amazing.
yeah,
I,
and I was in York in the north. So where were you?
I was in London. So I was a London Southwest girl. Yeah. So grew up in Croydon, a place called Croydon.
Yeah, and yeah, London. Another one of my favorite cities. I love visiting London, but it's big. It's a big city. So I guess yeah. So what was that like adjustment like for you and your family, like being in London after coming from Nigeria?
I think London and Lagos, where I was born in Lagos, Nigeria, has the same vibe in terms of like
Mm.
business and people, and everyone's, almost like a rat race. You're going somewhere and all of that. I think the more adjustment was just like the cultural things, so the language, in terms we both spoke English, but obviously the accents and things like that. So yeah, there was just that, the weather. It was, I think we came in the summer, but really realizing the winter very quickly. That was a shock. I was just like, the snow is pretty, but I hate the cold. And then moved to Dubai, but yeah.
Yeah, and also not only that, but like during the winter time, like the sun sets at like 4:30
Oh,
in the afternoon, and
depressing.
yeah, I always joke with my British friends where I say I could see why Dracula was drawn to England in that book, because he liked that the sun would set so early and he'd have more time to just
So
play at
true.
night.
you got the whole time. Like it's constantly wet, it's damp, it's just, yeah, it wasn't a very pleasant transition. And it was just like from just sunny Lagos, yes, we get our Hamatan season, which is a bit chillier, but not as cold as, the British winter. So that was tough. That was definitely tough.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So you said that you definitely read up on places around the world growing up, spending time in the library and everything like that. But when you actually came to a point in your life where you were actually ready to capitalize on that and go out and travel the world, what are some of your earliest travel memories? Like, where were some of like maybe the first places that you gotten to go to and experience?
So the first place, I obviously, with even growing up, we traveled a bit. So my first international flight was to the US, to Texas. I remember because I remember that's when I learned how to ride the bicycle. It was quite warm and it felt a bit like Lagos. So I remember that. And then, we go yearly trips to the same place, the US, but it was quite nice. And then in uni, there was a program called GLP, Global Leaders Program, which is almost like an exchange program. I always tell people to capitalize on these opportunities when you're much younger. So I got to go to India. And I remember telling my folks, I'm going to India. And they're like, India? Like, the heck? What's that? Like, what do you know that? And I was like, why not? So I've always had that why not mentality growing up. I don't know where it came from, but it's always like, hey, why not? Let's do it. So that was an amazing experience. And it was stupidly discounted because the uni, took most of the cost of us. And then, from there, I started doing Europe trips. I realized, oh my God, there are things like Ryanair and EasyJet, which allows you to fly for like $20 or even $10. I've flown return on 20 pounds, within Europe. So I intensively started exploring Europe. So I'm like taking the red eye fly on Friday, coming back on a Sunday, just like a weekend away to my favorite European country. So I intensely started exploring Europe. I think my first solo trip was to Sweden. And it was great. It was just that kind of first taste of, oh my God, this is what freedom could taste like. Like I could do this, choose what to do, where to go, where to eat. I was in the kind of deciding everything, and that was liberating. Especially from having a background of suffering from dyslexia, whereby it's a reading condition, whereby you need to go and seek approval for everything in a way. That taste of freedom through travel was addictive because it's like I didn't need to bypass any kind of like checks through anybody. I could just go, pick up and go, and nobody needed to have an input in this decision making. So that was quite exciting. So yeah, and I just kept going from there. It was just kind of like every weekend, my friends are like, oh, you want to hang out? I'm like, nah, I got a flight to catch. Bye. If you want to come, and most of them tagged along as well. But it was mostly solo. Yes.
Yeah. So, that's one thing I always like about traveling to Europe. Now, of course, with me living in the US, flights could be expensive to get there. But when you actually get there, getting around is not that expensive. Like you mentioned, flights are pretty cheap, or just jump on a train and it's not going to be that expensive either. So it's just, you can cover a lot of ground in Europe without having to spend a whole lot of money. So it is kind of nice. Yeah, traveling there for sure.
Yeah. So a lot of Americans kind of do like a backpack. So they come out there for like, 3 months and you can cover it. It's also quite small as a continent. So you can really hit a lot of countries within a few months if you want to see it all, but it's doable. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and another thing that stood out to me from your story just now is that you said that when you came to the U.S. first, you came to Texas, which is actually where I'm currently based. I live in San Antonio. So I guess, what do you kind of remember from Texas and just kind of things you gotten to see here or there?
I remember
I'm in, yeah, because I'm in Florida right now. So in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it quite being hot. I remember it was so hot, like they had like sprinklers 24/7 or something like that, just so that the plants don't die. I remember I had that vivid memory. I remember they had like blackout curtains. I think that was the first time I saw blackout curtains. I mean, I was used to like sheer print, just so that the sun don't wake you up at like 4 a.m. So So those are the kind of memory. But it was just very family oriented. It wasn't kind of seeing like, touristy spots or something. It was just me hanging out with my cousins, riding my bike, going to the park, those kind of things. So yeah, it was a short holiday, but I remember going to Maryland, Texas. Where else did we go to? Yeah, we visited like 4 different states, and it was fun. It was really good.
All right. Excellent. Now, yeah, another point that you brought up that I also really liked and resonated with was you were kind of talking about for students that may be attending uni right now and capitalizing on opportunities within there to see if they can travel through uni. And that's actually kind of how I got my start as well during like one of my last semesters for when I was going through undergrad. Was I did a 2-week study abroad in Japan, and that was the first country that I traveled to outside of the U.S. Well, aside from Canada, but like I'm from Michigan, so I share a border with Canada, so I don't really count that necessarily. But that was what set it all off for me. It just, planted that seed, and then I just wanted to go out more and more. So it's just, I mean, for anyone that's like in that position, capitalize on every opportunity that you can, because that the university is getting what it wants out of you with all your money and your tuition. So
Exactly. Like take everything. People always, even till today, I only found out about that program in my final year, just like you. And they did this yearly. So till to date, I'm still kicking myself. Like I could have gone to Malaysia. I think they had a trip to go there, Japan as well, like you said. So like these are like places whereby I wouldn't have even thought about going. So once you enroll your freshman, just find these programs I'm telling you, I think I paid like £300 for like my whole trip to India, flights, accommodation, food. Like, that's
wow.
ridiculous. Well taken care, safety sorted out because you're in a group of people. So like it's just incredible. Like just when people always like, oh, I didn't know that. Just go there, part of your enrollment, or even now, if you're in there now, just go knock in the career. They're usually in the careers department, just like, hey, I would like to do an exchange program, or what can I do abroad? And you'll be given something. But you're right, a lot of people don't capitalize on it because they don't even know it exists. So yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. So, all right. Well, another question that I wanted to ask you, and I typically ask this question to all the women that come on my show, and this is on behalf of like a lot of women that I have in my life. Where you will hear travel stories from like either myself or maybe they have like influencers that they may follow on Instagram as well, and that they see all these travel photos and experiences that others are having, and they like the idea of getting out there themselves, but they're often afraid to, just because they, may also see like stories of like crazy things happening in other parts of the world, and so they'll be reluctant to go out there and try to experience things through travel, especially by themselves. And so I guess when you kind of decided to go out solo, I think you said like your first solo trip was to Sweden. Was safety something that you were concerned about at all? And if so, how did you kind of sort of counteract that?
I think I have two responses to that. So the first is I live in a state of what's the word? Naivety when I was quite young. And I think that was a blessing as well, because I was just, let's go, what's the worst that could happen? Over time, that's, changed with awareness. But I think sometimes the level of, not knowing what you're getting into is a good thing, way is when people start remarking like, oh my God, you went there by yourself, like, and then you're like, oh, did I do something special? Like, should I not have? So that's number one. I was very naive. I have to put it out there. I don't want to say, I was this confident. I was just blatantly naive. And the second thing, I always tell people, I have the trippy wapple, in terms of whammy or whatever they call it. So I usually go to places solo. I am female, like you pointed out, and I am Black. So that is definitely layered in terms of the encounters I go with, the people that I engage with. I've got my fair share of discrimination because of my race. I've had my fair share of, blatantly just being disregarded because I'm a female, my voice not being heard or something like that. So these are things that I have experienced. Do those experiences outweigh the positive? No, absolutely not. But I always tell people that you make your travel what you want it to be. And it could sound a bit woo-woo, but I genuinely believe that when I go to places, I am welcomed, I am wanted there. And that is what I've mostly felt. So yeah, safety concerns, definitely, I think one mistake people make is visiting a new place. They tend to disregard the safeties they implement when in their hometown. So, if you don't go out late in the night, or you don't tell people, or you do tell people where you are, stuff like that. Some people, when they travel abroad, they just kind of like, free flow. And you're just like, no, the same rule apply to this foreign place. So I try to implement the same things. I don't carry like pepper spray or have like a alarm on my door, just because I don't want to necessarily live in fear. And I think because pepper spray is illegal in the UK, it's considered a weapon. So those things I know, but I know I've seen like trends on social media, and I don't know. I feel sometimes fear is something that sells as well. And for that reason, a lot of people push that ideology in terms of like, whoa, like, buy my course, I'll teach you how to be safe, or, buy these products. So I feel that's something as well people need to be conscious about. And when they say, every time I feel fear, I always ask myself, is this my fear, or has it been given to me? Is someone trying to hand this to me? Which is very important for me. So yeah, I think the mindset in which you go traveling with, I think not losing sight of the safety precautions you take on a day-to-day basis, and just most likely understanding that, traveling is rewarding and not a detrimental or a negative thing towards you. I think that's the message I want to put out there. That yeah, I think the mindset you approach it with most time reflect back the experiences you have. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. There's kind of a balance that you strike between like, yeah, you want to be safe and you want to take like those necessary precautions. But then if you're just like too far in one direction where all you're just doing is feeling fear and paranoia, then are you really going to enjoy your experience if you're just going to be worried and afraid like the whole time? It's like you're going to remember that about your trip, not about the amazing things that you went there to experience. So it's like, yeah, definitely you want to make sure you be safe and take precautions and prepare accordingly and stuff like that. But if it's just like, if you're just so fearful, then was the experience worth it to begin with, I guess. So
yeah, you something that was so beautiful. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, it's people say, oh, I had one bad experience, and it just eliminates every other good thing they had. Let's say they had like a shitty, I don't know, taxi person right from the start of the trip, and that's it. They canceled the whole country. And I'm just like, whoa, one person did one bad thing doesn't mean the whole country is canceled. So there's a whole lot of things with, Mexico right now. And people are like, oh my God, I'll never go there because of the whole, media outcast of it. So I think it's definitely you understanding that every country has a problem. The UK has issues, the US has issues. Where is truly safe? We hear crazy stuff for every day in the country, in the cities we live in. Yet we don't go around, being fearful. So why should I carry that burden going somewhere abroad? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, this is also going to be, my next question is going to be a little bit of a loaded one, because as you've mentioned, you've been to like 70 plus countries right now. But just for the sake of extrapolating some stories from you, do you have any like highlights? I mean, is there, looking back on it all, has there been maybe just a few standout moments or sites or places in your memory that, just really kind of just say, okay, yeah, that was a fun one, or that just, so yeah, any highlights from your travels?
Plenty. How much time have you got? Like you pointed out, after these 70 countries, there's just no way. I love that quote, traveling leave you speechless, and then it turns into a storyteller. Like, I just look forward to having grandkids, and I'm just like, come here, come listen to this story, because I got stories for days. So a few highlights. I definitely really enjoyed visiting Namibia. So I did 10 countries at the beginning of last year, and just exploring them intensively. 10 African countries, because I realized in my travels I wasn't really exploring the continent of Africa. By the way, it's a continent and not a country. People sometimes think Africa is a country. So I just need to put that out there. And one of the countries was Namibia. I didn't know, like I did some research and each person just said, if you really wanted to explore Namibia, you got to drive. Like, there are tours organized, but obviously with tours, there's sometimes issues of not you having your freedom to go off the beaten paths and stuff like that. And I was like, drive in Namibia? What the? But I was like, per usual, Pelumi style. Okay, we're gonna do it. So I rented a 4x4, a Jimmy Suzuki or something like that. Amazing car, by the way. And I drove 4,000 kilometers across Namibia solo. And I can just tell you it's amazing. Namibia is this country that is so underrated in terms of the sites, the people. It's not densely populated, and you just feel like you're in Mars, somewhere different. I remember sleeping under the stars in Skokie. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And I just started bawling. I don't know why. I don't know what, but it was just that the feeling of being so small. Like you just like, damn, like, because there was no light pollution, like you literally could see the Milky Way. Like it was absolutely stunning. And you just like, driving and seeing the mountains and the view. So that's one highlight. And I just think it's incredible. Everyone should experience Namibia at least once in a lifetime. And then you have like within Europe itself, I always tell people the West Europe is intensively explored. So Spain, Italy, France, those are the, people's go to usually. I say go to Eastern Europe. That's another place. The Balkans, for example, Montenegro, all of them places, Albania. Yes, as a Black person, usually people are just like, hell no. Thank you. So I got a lot of outreach when I was exploring that place intensively. Like, was it like? Mostly they haven't just seen a Black person, so there's just that curiosity, and sometimes it leads to people treating you either really well or really shitty. So it can go both ways. I just have to put that disclaimer right there. But gorgeous places like Montenegro, like just mountains and water, and you just like, how does this exist? Like, what kind of beauty is this? So yeah, so you just go to those places. Australia was amazing. I feel like if I want to change my life, change my name, become a new person, that's where I would head to. It's just so far away. It feels like life is like a different place over there. But yeah, those are a few places, but just go. And I always tell people traveling doesn't necessarily mean across the world. And no, that's a mistake people make as well. It could just be a new city, somewhere close by. Start small and build that muscle. And before you know it, you start making bigger strides. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful memories. I just won't trade them for the world.
Yeah. I want to kind of zoom in on Africa really quick here because, I spent 2 years in West Africa. I was a Peace Corps volunteer there. And it's just like, yeah. And anyone else who I know who has been to like Africa, no matter where they are on the continent, they and again, yeah, definitely want to emphasize, yes, it's a continent made up of many countries, not just one country named Africa. Because yeah, even to this day, I still have a lot of people who haven't made that distinguish yet. And because and I also spent some time in North Africa and Morocco, and of course up there, there's the Sahara Desert, and your story of what you were talking about, just being in this area with no light pollution and just having a completely unobscured view of the stars. I had a similar experience in the desert and this was during a full moon too, and I tell you, Pelumi, it's like it might as well have just been daytime because that moon was so bright that night. I didn't need my flashlight to like walk from my tent to like other places because there was nothing that was obstructing the moon's light from reaching us. It was incredible. And everyone else, like in my tour group, yeah, they brought up their high-tech cameras with their big lenses because they were just anticipating having just this view of the moon. And it was incredible. And so it's just, and it's one, and you're right also is that many of the places in and around the continent are very off the beaten path, and logistically they could be hard to get to as well. But it's just, you definitely get those once in a lifetime experiences that would be very, very hard to replicate in other parts of the world.
I agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, like I said, now this is what it is with me and being a podcaster. Now the gears are turning in my head, thinking about like other places to go see. So, um, all right. So another thing that I kind of wanted to ask you about is, just kind of getting yourself to go ready to go to all these places. Going to 70 plus countries, like we've mentioned, is just it's traveling. Not only does it involve a big time commitment, but it also involves a big financial commitment too. I mean, of course, we talked about ways that you can kind of save money by utilizing like cheap flights and rail systems and so on and so forth. But still, you got to front up a good amount of money if you want to go out and travel. So it's just, how do you sort of kind of like prepare yourself and plan financially speaking to like actually go out there and do all the travels that you've done so far?
I totally agree. I think traveling is one of the most expensive habits one can possibly hobby or habit, one could possibly have. Just I think there's that saying, if something is important for you, you just find a way, you figure it out. And that has been, financial. I have a lot of privilege, that comes with, for example, passport privilege. I have the British passport, which takes me to quite a few countries without needing like visas and the costs that come with that. So they're definitely a claim of privilege. I don't necessarily have a family, a husband, a child, so that responsibility is not there. I stayed at home for quite a long time, so rent wasn't a thing for quite a while. So those kind of things were ways in which financially I was able to afford things. I think it's very important to acknowledge the privilege before I start bombarding with tips and stuff like that. When it comes to finances, I feel prioritizing what was important for me. There's this running joke in my friendship group that I still have some outfits from, we call it college, which is like your uni, but even earlier than that, we don't usually do college, then go to uni. We're talking that's 10 years or something of, because shopping is just not a thing, So prioritizing kind of like travel over shopping, having like a designer item. I have no designer items. It's just that kind of discipline, I'll say, that goes towards it. When it comes to finances, so money, I think is very important. And there's this thing that traveling can be free. Traveling is never free, ever. And I think it's also important to highlight that people that provide the message of traveling can be free usually does like an exchange of either time, of their service, of their resources, something. There's always a cost exchange. They go to a hotel, they get free stay, but they deliver some deliveries of like photos or videos for the hotel. So it's a paid exchange of value. So if you don't have that value proposition, it's hard to get the free stuff. I just wanted to clarify that too as well. But when it comes to money, I think having an account. So I have 6 accounts at the moment under the same bank, and you can do this. Just go to the bank and say I want to open a few accounts, and this allows you to transfer money quite easy if it's within the same bank. And I have like my savings, my current, which bills goes in and out, my ISA, which is like saving up for like a house or something, travel fund, giving fund, and my fund. So that's how I divide it. And each time I get a payment, a salary, income, whatever, that gets split up percentage wise. So you can do this. You can do 5-10% goes into a certain thing. And that allows me to have an isolated account for travel, whereby I can look at it. And when it comes to time to book a trip or time to go somewhere, is a simple yes or no answer. Can I afford this? I think sometimes having everything in one pot, you then have to say, oh, can I pay for rent? Can I pay for my bill? It's harder to make those decisions. Me, because everything is just isolated, a travel account, a travel pot, I can literally I don't need to look at any other account because this is solely for travel. I go, okay, and then I can go. So I think that's something to have, and just being consciously, putting a certain deposit every month, it does build up. But yeah, cutting back on things that you don't find necessary, or just looking at your account and just saying, where can I cut back off? If you like your daily coffee, go for your daily coffee. Life is too short. I would say, stop your daily coffee. But, find other ways. Can you reduce something in order to allow your travel to become a reality? So that's how I've gone about travel. And for a very, very long time, I did backpacking. I did a lot of like hostels and stuff like that just to save up. As I got older, your style does change and you do want a comfortable bed. And that's okay as well. So yes, start with whatever you cut your coat according to your size, as they say. start where you can and then go from there. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely like the point about leverage technology, like as you've mentioned, where it's like, yeah, you open up multiple accounts, but then you can see it all in just like one place like that, and so you can kind of divvy it up accordingly. Setting like that time aside to when you get income, and then decide how you want to divvy it up.
And you can even set up direct debits. So if you don't want to be the one going there and isolating it by yourself, you can leave instructions like when I get my pay, the next day or 2 days later, pay, $500 to these accounts. Like you can set up those standing order. I think that's what it's called, or direct debit. One of it goes hand in hand. And that makes it automated.
Yeah, and that's kind of like and there's apps out there too where you can kind of sort of automate those things. Like me personally, I like to use Capital, which is capital with a Q. And that's like another thing that it does as well. You kind of just connect with your bank accounts, and then you can actually set like savings things, and you can also set out like how you want to separate savings into this separate account, where it's like do you want to like withdraw a certain amount of money like every week or every month, or they also have this feature where for every like amount you spend, it's like it'll take the change and like set it aside, like as well, and then or you can do like roundup features and just other ways to do it. And I just kind of set those parameters, and then I just let it go and let it build. And just within the last couple of months, I've already set aside like $1,000 to, and this is just stuff that I'm going to use for travel and fun along the way too. And it's like and I hardly even notice it. I hardly even noticing that money's going from my accounts to build that thing up. It's just and then you also made a really good point how just like, yeah, the little things like over time that, that you're spending on, that is going to like rack up. And so it's just like, now I'm kind of at the point where it's like, okay, do I want to go out and buy lunch like every day I go to work, or do I want to take lunch to work with me and, just kind of save some money that way too? And it is a mindset, absolutely, where I think to myself, it's like, yeah, maybe I could go buy that brand new flat screen TV, but that same amount of money I'm going to spend on that TV is about the cost of a plane ticket. So yeah, it's just,
I look at everything at cost of plane tickets. Honestly, it's like, oh, I go buy a whole trip with that money.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right though. Definitely just like lots of ways to do it though, but it does involve a good amount of intentionality, I guess I'll say, is kind of a key word there, and sacrifice too, because like you said, I mean, you were like living at home for a while too, so rent wasn't an issue, but obviously that's kind of like a sacrifice that you had to make and in order to do it. So so it's not easy all the time, but it's doable. It's doable.
It's doable, and that's kind of where the motto came from. Traveling can be easy, safe, and doable. I just wanted to show people that those fundamentals is easy. You can do it. Like you really can. If it's something important to you and you want to achieve, like it's doable. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So I kind of want to ask you about Dubai next, and kind of how you found your way there. Because like I mentioned, I loved visiting that city. And that is one thing I also noticed about Dubai, is that it does have like a very large expatriate population living there. I almost want to say like about like a third of the country, if I recall.
I want to say more, 80% about. It's quite.
Yeah. So like kind of, yeah, just fill us in on that. Like, how did you find your way to Dubai, and like when did you move there?
So I moved earlier this year, so I'm fresh into the country, but I'm loving it so far. I think it's one of those decisions. I went back to the UK just to pick up some few things I left behind, and I was like, yeah, that it was a good move. Those kind of like the realization that yes, you did the right thing. Dubai was my brother actually live out here too as well, so he's been out here. So just having someone here is quite nice. But in terms of the move, it was a combination of different things. It wasn't me hating the UK or something. I think I was just ready for a new chapter, a new change. As this thing, because I would say 80% are expert. They come out of a willingness or a choice, because it's just a great setup that's working. And I'm going to point out a few things that make it great living here. But like, because they chose to be here, it's very different mentality to people that were born in a certain place. There's less complacency in terms of like, there's just that drive. Like, I left my hometown, I need to succeed. There's that, like, it's just that hustle culture, which I love. Like, it just gets me going because I'm out here building my travel company. But yeah, that's the first thing. Weather is great. Like, most of the time, they say summer gets really hot, so I'm looking forward to that. But just the weather, and you don't realize, and people just say, "Oh, weather, you can get weather." Weather is a big thing, especially when you suffer from seasonal depression and stuff like that. Like, when you're just constantly in a low mood because it's gray constantly, like in London, this could be just a positive mental health shift for people that just feel they need that boost of sunshine. I sit outside at least an hour every day to read, and it's just paradise. I just like toes curls, amazing. Tax-free living, I think that's the biggest thing that entices people to Dubai. In the UK, you could get charged as much as 40% of your income on tax. So the government, I say basically 50, like half of your money you're earning, you're working hard, and then at the end of the month, someone's like, you know what, like, yeah, give me 50%, like give me 40%. Like, that's ridiculous when you look at it that way. So being able to be tax-free living is something exciting too as well. So those are just a few factors, but I was just ready for a new chapter. And I think it's a temporary move. I don't see this as my forever home, but then a lot of people say that they end up living here for like 10, 20 years. But I'm excited in terms of kind of like what the adventure is, but it was just kind of like, again, that naivety of, okay, let's try this new adventure, let's try something new, and yeah, so far it's been great.
Excellent. Yeah, one thing I really liked about Dubai is there's a really interesting contrast to the city. I mean, on one hand, you have this modern day, I call it a modern day fantasy city, just because you see all these engineering marvels taking place. Like, you have a shopping mall with a ski resort inside of it, for one. You have the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, is there as well. And then they have islands that are shaped like palm leaves that they literally built by pumping sand from the ocean floor. But then, like, you get to see all that, but then you go to like the older parts of the city, and then you have like the bustling souks and markets where people are actually selling like spices and stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, this is so cool, because it's like, yeah, you can have your modern luxury amenities, but then if you really want to experience like, some culture as well, it's just, yeah, just go over there, and it's really cool.
Absolutely. There's just something about, again, with the principle, because this is not a country like with democracy and stuff like that. It's founded by a family and stuff like that. So there's that level of, I think within there's just that vim and vision. Like, Dubai 10 years ago is insane to what it is right now. And the next plans they have for them for the next 10 years just blows my mind. There's just this level of excellency. Like you said, the tallest building. They have the biggest, the tallest, the deepest. They want to win all the most possible award of just being the, when you think of just think Dubai. Like, if they say, what is the highest? Dubai, what is the best? Like, they just have that mentality of constant, the vision of the country is just to be the best, and being in that surrounding forces you to be the best in what you're doing, which is insane. So like, you're right, you can be very bubble like in a way. So it's quite easy to get lost in the sauce. That's another disclaimer I have to put out there, whereby you can get lost in the flashiness and stuff, but you can remain grounded, when you go to these other places and you feel the historical culture and stuff like that. But yeah, it has everything for everyone. If you want to go desert, it's there. If you want to go to the old souk, if you want to go to the high scrapers and just be lost in pure luxury, you got everything. Dubai has everything for everybody.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely a place I would recommend people to travel to for sure. I mean, and for many more reasons than the ones that we just described in this episode. But, yeah, we could probably do like a whole podcast on just that city alone easily for sure. But what I want to get to next, Pelumi, and this is a stable that I like to ask all my guests on the podcast, because, you've covered so much ground. as a traveler. And there's this saying that I have, and that is that those who return from an adventure are not the same as those that who had left, because travel, it changes you, and for the most part in good ways. We always come back, we learn some things along the way. We make mistakes, and we learn from those as well. So just reflecting on your travel experiences thus far, and this is going to be another one of those loaded questions, so I'll just ask you to kind of think of what comes to mind. But what would you say have been some of your key takeaways and life lessons that you've learned from your travels that you've been able to implement in your life along the way?
There's good in the world. I think we are bombarded with media that just tell us like human need to scrape planet Earth and go to the moon or something. But there are good people in the world. There are kind people in the world. Traveling has taught me that if you don't make things happen, then it doesn't happen. Bravery is an amazing trait. Not fully seeing the picture, but choosing to take that leap of faith or step of faith can be incredibly rewarding, and you only would know when you do it. Like if you just stay still frozen, you don't realize how much you're missing out on. Enjoying the journey and not necessarily the destination, just implementing that in life, like every day, the mundane, you realize the small moments are actually the big moments. Like the memories I have are just the little things in the grand scheme of things that I've been through when it comes to travel. But so is life, the people we spend time with, our loved ones. Like time is so fleeting, and it can just disappear in one day. And what we have left are those memories. So intentionally, I think you used that word earlier on, creating those memories and being just curating the life you want and knowing that you have the ability to do so. I think some people feel very hopeless and very not sure that they have an input in the life they're constantly living, but you do, So yeah, that's the few lessons traveling has taught me. I could go on, but I think, yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And and sometimes I think it is kind of tough. I always say, memento mori, remember that you will die, because unfortunately it's just that's the one thing that's assured for all of us, is that we're all going to die someday.
Out here alive.
Yeah. Well, which I hope for us though, that is many, 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 many years down the road. But you're right though. And going back to this idea of intentionality, where it's just like when I'm on my deathbed someday, I want to be able to look back on my life and say, that was one hell of a ride. Like I did a lot of cool things. And and another person that I remembered bringing this up on the show said, like, what price would you be willing to pay to have like something back? It's just like, and you even said like just those little things like spending time with your family and getting to go out and travel. It's just like, what price would you pay to do that again? And if you're not willing to pay a lot, then should you be doing that right now? And I mean, sometimes things like, in this day and age, we're mindlessly scrolling through social media for hours on end, or we're engaging in these like online battles, with like people if they don't agree with us on something. It's just like, how much would you spend to be able to do more of that at the end of your life? So it's just, so I think about that a lot too, just my own mortality and just like making sure I'm being intentional in the moment with, how I spend this precious resource that we have of time.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, like you said, in the deathbed, I just don't want to have that could have, should have, would have, you just don't want that. I think they did like this whole survey. Most people regret more of the things they did not do than the things they did do. So, yes, there'll be mistakes. Yes, there might be hiccups, but at least you did it. And it's not lingering like, oh, I wish I did. I wish I did. So yeah.
All right. Outstanding. All right. What I have for you next is, since we're kind of starting to wind down on time, I do want to give you a few minutes to tell us a little bit about your business. Like I said, you are the founder of Oremi Travels. So, by all means, kind of tell us a little bit about it and what you're all about.
Yes, Oremi Travel was born out of, I'm a solo traveler. And like I said, I've traveled to about 50 countries by myself. But as I grew older, I realized the importance of friendship, or more important, the people, like we spoke about, your family, the people you do life with. And I realized there was missing bits. Some people are forced to solo travel just because they've tried to put people and to go with them and to have these memories, saying, it never leaves the group chat. It always ends in the WhatsApp group or whatever. So that's what Oremi is trying to do. We're trying to create travel for group trips for the people to be able to explore. Our motto is simple: just grab your friends and we will do the rest. So we are a travel company that just, focus mostly on milestone celebration. So if you're having your 30th, reunions, bachelorette, or just because trip with the people you care about, because there's just a lot of travel agency out there that does a lot of solo trip, a lot of, come solo and they curate for other solo travelers together, which there's nothing wrong with that. But we just feel within the travel industry, there is not anything that says, come with your core group of friends, come with your family member, come with your people, your tribe, and we will sort out everything else. So that's what we've been building. It's been amazing because, people can finally celebrate those milestones and, be surrounded by the love and the people around them. And we make sure that it's memorable. So creating moments, we go back home and you're like, in a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, or a year time, we're like, oh, remember when we love that, So yeah, that's what we've been building, and it's been exciting doing that. So if you have any, so to the listeners, if you have any group trips that have been just lingering in the group chats and it's just not seem to be having any edge way, or you just feel you need someone to help out, so we curate, we organize, we make it sure that it's not something you can just grab off the shelf. So for example, if you're coming to Dubai, you have, like you mentioned, the desert experience. But these are all things you can go on Get Your Guide and buy, Viator or TripAdvisor. We do stuff more like, having like a private chef and having that kind of more intimate experiences with your people. So yeah, that's what we're all about. We're just trying to make more memories with the people that we spend life with, because life is short, and yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be getting everything for it linked up in the show notes for this episode, or if they're watching on, if our viewers are watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description below, so they can go and find them there. All right. So what I have for you next is, and I also like to ask my guests to issue a challenge to our listeners, because, stories and information that we've shared in this podcast can only take our listeners and viewers so far. Action has to follow up in order to go out and do amazing things. So with that, what challenge would you issue to our listeners today for them to go out there and start living a more adventurous life?
It's such a simple challenge. It's so simple. First of all, the magic is in the doing. If you can write that down somewhere, this is one of my biggest principles I live by. So I want you to go out there and do something you've never done before, especially pushing outside of your comfort zone. So if you've never had a solo dinner before, if you've never taken yourself, to your neighboring city or something like that, I just want you to do something that you would usually go, not doing that, and do that this week, whenever you're listening to this. Just really step out of the comfort, feel that cringe, that discomfort, and push past that. Like I said, the pleasure is always at the other side of your fear. That's my challenge. Just do something uncomfortable.
All right. Very good. All right. So what I have for you next is my final three. These are three fun questions. At least I like to think that they're fun questions that I ask all my guests at the end of the show. So of course, you're going to get asked these as well. And the first of these three questions is, what is your favorite place that you've been to so far?
It's like telling the mom to pick like the favorite child. That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I love Zanzibar. It felt like paradise. I've never seen water so blue and sand so white. It was just incredible. And, you have like Maldives that also have that vibe, but I felt like Zanzibar also offered like, a lot more. So it felt value for money in terms of the things you get to do as well. So yeah, anyway, Zanzibar, that's my response. All
right. And that's a first to come up on the podcast, Pelumi. No one's brought up Zanzibar before. So there we go. All right. And the next question, what is one thing on your bucket list that you have yet to do?
You mentioned the Sahara Desert. I'm like, oh, we're seeing. I'm actually thinking of doing a drive from London all the way to home to my first home, second home, whatever you want to call it. So from London, the UK to Lagos, Nigeria. So I'm going to do a long, about 3 months drive.
Okay.
To the
So
Sahara Desert.
you're going to go over land and over water from the UK to Nigeria. Wow. Well, that is going to be a trek. That's going to be cool, though.
I'm excited. It's happening early next year. So yeah,
all right. And definitely another first to come up on the podcast. So we are 2 for 2 so far with first answers to these questions. So, but I got one more for you. And this third question is a two-parter. What is your favorite animal? And have you seen this animal in the wild?
Oh my God. Yes, I saw it in Kenya. Elephants. Oh my God, they are so majestical. I remember, again, I think I'm just a crybaby. I remember crying during the safari. We saw the big five. But the elephant is just like, damn, you big. So yeah, I was able to see it twice. I saw it in Nairobi, Kenya, and I saw it out in Masabara. So yeah, I love it.
Okay, I'm trying to think if that's a first. Maybe. I think so. I'm gonna let you have it though, since I can't, actively think of another.
It doesn't come up quick. I was thinking lioness. I was like, that might be too obvious. Let me do elephant.
No, but it's just, it's powerful creatures is what they are for sure. So yeah, wow. Okay. Again, now my gears are turning yet again, thinking about places to get out there and see. So, all right, very good. All right. Well, Pelumi, that's it. That's all the questions that I have for you today. But before we call it a day here, let's go over how our listeners can reach out and connect with you. So, and also learn more and see what you got available at Oremi Travels. So, yeah, website, social media accounts. What do you got for us?
So we have everything. So in terms of checking out the group trips, in terms of like you planning or curating your trips, you can find us on www.oremitravels.com, or you can find us on Instagram, Oremi Travels. So we're sharing like tips, hacks, and things that allows or encourage you to get out there with your tribe. In terms of my personal account, I am on Instagram, pelumi.nubi. There I just share the behind the scene of building a travel company. That's kind of the season I'm in right now. But aside from that, when I'm out exploring Dubai, or as I plan to do, the Middle East, I share all the content there too as well. So if you're looking for somewhere with abundance of resources, that's probably where you want to go to. So yeah. And my DMs are wide open. If you have any questions, I'll be more than thrilled to answer them.
All right. And like I mentioned, I'll get everything linked up in the show notes for this episode, so our listeners and viewers can go and find them there. Well, Pelumi, I want to thank you very much for taking the time for joining me today and, being flexible, because obviously we're facing like an 8-hour time difference from where we're both situated in the world. And but yeah, this has just been great, because that's one thing I love, like I said, about being a podcaster and just being able to connect with so many people and hear stories. It's what fires me up to continue to go out there and be curious and just continue to see this vast world that we have. So yeah, just thanks for being here and sharing your stories and insights with myself and the listeners today. This has been great.
Thank you so much, Josh. Now, this has been incredible. And I want to thank the listeners especially, because I always believe time is something that you can never get back. So for taking our time to listen to this episode, I am truly grateful. And thank you for having me on your show. It was fun. I really enjoyed this conversation.
All right. Right on.